You ever find yourself wanting to fly around the world as a Geonosian and take out some clone snipers? What about controlling a Wampa and ganking the rebel infantry before Darth Vader grows some balls and invades? Or maybe you're different and want to see what it's like to play as an Ewok and peg some stormtroopers. No diddy. Well, good news for you baby oil enthusiasts, because today I decided to sit down and play through every hunt mode in Star Wars Battlefront 2 without dying. The rules are simple. I have to play through every hunt mode in the classic Star Wars Battlefront 2 in the order that they can be grabbed via instant action. If I die, I have to restart from the top of the list. That means if I somehow win the hunt as the Ewoks on Endor, win as the Geonosians on Geonosis, but lose as the Wampas on Hoth, I need to go back and replay Endor and Geonosis, along with any other hunt that I'd previously completed. The goal is every hunt in one single life. Now, there are only 6 hunt missions in the classic Battlefront 2, combine both sides, and we're at 12 missions, so here's how it'll work. Like I just said, I'll play through all 6 hunts in the order that they're presented in instant action. I can choose whichever group I'd like to start with, but need to complete the hunt as both teams in order for it to count. Oh, and it should go without saying, but obviously I'll need to win the hunt as well. I can't just hide in the back for 5 minutes and wait for the game to end. The only change I made to the hunt mode is that initially I boosted the score requirement. By default it's 50, and when we had done a multiplayer stream a while back, we completed the Kashyyyk hunt in under 30 seconds, so to avoid any similar outcomes, initially I had maxed out the score requirement. This doesn't really end up mattering at all, because when I get to the actual run where I complete all of the hunts, it's set to the default of 50 score, but I'll get to that in a moment. Instead of a plug or a sponsor for this video, I do have a favor to ask of you. Like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more, and drop some other challenge runs that you'd like to see. So far, I have a Republic Commando playthrough, Empire at War, and KOTOR challenges either planned or in the works, but I'm always on the lookout for more. Alright, that's enough begging, onto the gameplay. And what better place to start than Endor? Now, I'm no expert on the subject, but I'm pretty sure that the Ewoks are the most difficult hunt to win in the OG Battlefront 2. It's bad enough that I have to play as a furry, but now I'm somehow expected to use sticks and stones to beat blaster rifles, which is not how I remember that Rihanna song going. Anyway, the first hunt was off to a pretty good start. I always remembered it being a bit more difficult as the Ewoks, but maybe it's because I'm also playing on the re-release version instead of the true classic from 2005. That being said, even on elite difficulty, we were holding our own. I found the most success by recruiting another Ewok to follow me and serve as more of a meat shield. This worked for a bit, but as it would turn out, furries are no match for grenades. Who would have guessed? This is how my second attempt started. Come to think of it, this has gotta be the Ewoks version of D-Day. Like, just spawning into a jungle knowing there's a 75% chance they're either gonna get their furry little heads blown off or get lit up by some blaster fire. Luckily for us, Endor is the equivalent of Space Vietnam, so we can employ guerrilla tactics and gain the upper hand. Just look at their little legs, it's adorable. How could something so cute be so deadly? It's like the Gremlins, but these little furballs are like this on sight instead of having to feed them after midnight first. That's not to say this fight didn't have its share of close calls, though. You gotta remember, we're basically just furry hobbits, so it only takes a few blaster bolts to drop us within an inch of our lives. Okay, I recognize that my stone was what exploded and launched me into the air, but it's way funnier to imagine that a little 3-foot furball just suplexed a stormtrooper. So that's my headcanon, and that's what I'm sticking with. Honestly, the biggest difficulty with this fight was the fact that it took so damn long to rearm. You only get one spear per gonk, so I'd have to spend 30 seconds to a minute at a time just rearming all my spears, which is a major problem when I account for 99% of the kills. Now by the time I'd managed to get back into the fight, the stormtroopers were beginning to pull away on the scoreboard, so I wasn't all that annoyed when I took a sniper blast to the face. For my third attempt, I decided to drop the scores back down to 50, which is the default. Mainly because the second attempt alone took almost 20 minutes to score 50 points, and I don't think it's all that exciting to spend 1 hour on a single hunt, just to lose because we have an inferior soldier. My third attempt did start the exact same way though, with all of us spawning in on the same command post and fighting for our lives before we even realized what was going on. This run was much more stressful, and I think a big reason for that was just due to how intense some of these fights were. In the first two attempts, most of my fights were either 1v1s or maybe against 2 enemies, with maybe 1 or 2 fights consisting of more than that. But in the third attempt, it felt like every single fight was against at least 3 different scout troopers. After a close, hard-fought battle, I was simply overwhelmed while trying to gather more spears from a gonk droid. A sad but common reality. By my fourth attempt, I'd gotten pretty good at hurling spears into my enemies, but was still struggling with the whole rock-throwing concept. Now personally, I blame it on the fact that the scout troopers have elite pathing and can somehow sense exactly when I'm about to throw something, which prompts them to develop Devontae Adams level route running, stop on a dime, and cut in the opposite direction. Funny enough, my fourth attempt ended in the same exact manner that the third attempt did. Same gonk droid, same lack of ammo, same scout trooper overload. It wasn't until my fifth attempt until things finally started gelling. We got out to a massive lead thanks to someone carrying the team. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm finally starting to earn bonuses like War Hero now that I've gone through so many attempts. So it doesn't take 2 spears or 5 rocks to kill a scout anymore, which in turn saves me more ammo which I can then use on more scouts. I also just got really lucky with the drops for the most part. Most of them were ammo-oriented, so I didn't have to spend nearly as much time at the gonk droids as previous runs. After a hard-fought 10 minutes, the Ewoks walked away victorious, with our boy Gonk accounting for 47 of the 50 kills. With the Ewok side finished, I turned my attention to the Empire. This was an absolute shit kicking, because instead of a spear, you get a sick-ass sniper rifle that can one-shot these little fuckers. So all I needed to do was post up in the trees, start speaking Vietnamese, and light up the furries from above. It also helped that I consider the sniper class to be my best and most favorite of any trooper in the game, so it's effectively going from one of the most difficult hunts to one of the most easiest in the entire playthrough. Need proof? Look at the scoreboard. Onward to Geonosis. Now I do realize that a majority of these hunts are just one random faction against snipers, but that doesn't make them any less enjoyable for me. I chose to start with the Geonosians, thinking they'd be more difficult to play as than the snipers, but as it turned out, they were incredibly easy, at least when it came to the NPCs. I still carried for most of the fight, but it definitely felt like I could have just hid in the back of the map while my team cleaned up for me. Now, was I spawn camping the clone troopers? Maybe, but there's no rule outline that says I couldn't do that, and I don't make the rules.
I just think them up and write them down.
With that, I readied up for round 2 as the clone snipers this time. This was one of the quickest fights in the entire playthrough though. I posted up in the same exact spot I went as a Geonosian, and just got to work farming the bugs. They definitely gave me a run for my money though, considering the scoreboard ended up looking much more like the Ewok hunt, where my teammates had maybe 1 or 2 kills each, and then you've got Darth Gonk at the top with like 40 kills. Regardless, we're a third of the way through these, which means it's on to my personal favorite hunt, Hoth. When it comes to Hoth, I love the Wampas. So, to get the hard part over first, I went as the Rebels. Now I say hard, but what I really meant was boring. See, if you go as the Rebels, you can kind of just post up at the spawn and take advantage of all the turrets sitting around. The black dish turret practically one-shots a Wampa without even having to charge it, so the entire fight can be completed in less than 2 minutes if you just sit here and shoot at them. Now, the Wampas are actually difficult if you go out there, so what I like to do is slow down the other Wampas by blocking the path. This allows the Rebels to gain some ground and enter the hangar, and if you're lucky, even get a ways into the tunnel where you can just steamroll them. Now, has this actually ever worked? No, not once. So instead, I just sprinted out and tried to destroy the turret systems as quickly as possible. With the heavy guns destroyed, it's as easy as just spamming attacks. We're on the home stretch here, which means it's now time for Kashyyyk. I went as the Wookiees first because they do just kinda steamroll. Don't get me wrong, a bunch of them will still act really fucking stupid and take out the recon drones instead of just fighting with the droids, but for the most part, you can tank a lot of the damage. That being said, I prefer to sit on the top of the seawall towers and use the bowcaster as a makeshift sniper rifle. It's really easy to stay alive this way, and you can just focus on any of the Magna Guards who are popping recon drones. Even with that strategy though, you still need to hit your shots at an efficient rate because the droids will go toe-to-toe with you. Easy enough. Now onto the droids. I'm sure most of you watching already know, but you can auto-lock enemies with the Magna Guard pistol. That alone should tell you everything you need to know about this fight. Oh, and it also helps that you too have a recon drone, so you can always sit back and fly that in for some extra kills. Two hunts left. Onto Mos Eisley. When it comes to the Jawas and the Tusken Raiders, here's my stance. The Tusken Raiders are easier to play as if you're good at sniping, but the Jawas are much more fun. Mainly because they're equipped with these taser rifles, so you get to fulfill your fantasy of being a member of the NYPD's finest and tase the locals at your own discretion. Now it does chain to nearby NPCs, including other Jawas, so that's something to look out for, but that shouldn't matter too much if you just keep spamming it. Oh, it can also be charged, but I didn't notice much of a difference when it came to damage, so I'm assuming the charge is directly tied to how many enemies can be chained in that lightning shot. One quick glance at the scoreboard at any point in this fight should tell you everything you need to know about how it went. Basically, what happens is that the Jawas all run around together, and every time they hit a Tusken Raider, it stuns them for a second, which allows more Jawas to keep shooting them. It's really quite effective. I also noticed that rolling as a Jawa resets the cooldown on your rifle, so you can almost reload cancel your weapon for infinite blasts. Easy dub. The Tusken Raiders can either have a bolt-action rifle or a semi-auto, weaker rifle. Now initially, I preferred the bolt-action because it can one-shot the Jawas, so it really just came down to being able to hit my shots without spazzing out. The only problem with that is that it's the fucking beam rifle. They gave these guys the absolute worst weapon in the game. I'd rather have a default blaster pistol than this piece of shit. My strategy here was simply to sit on top of the dome area and just farm the Jawas from up top. Come to think of it, I don't think I was even hit by a single lightning blast the entire fight, and it still came down to the wire. It's time for the final hunt though, Naboo. To be honest, I didn't even know this existed. I thought it was just the 5 originally until I went to make this video. I had absolutely zero clue that you could play as a Gungan, so I was really excited for this. That being said, I did choose to start as a super battle droid. This way, I could test the waters and see how good the Gungans were. If they're steamrolling, I could just hide out in the fight and figure out a strategy. If they sucked, I could mentally prepare myself to potentially have to repeat the entire hunt catalog again. Now, it may have looked like a relatively close fight, but while playing, it felt like we were kicking the shit out of these guys. When it came time to swap to the Gungans though, I panicked. They have a fusion cutter, which is entirely useless, meaning their only viable weapon is 20 grenades. The strategy was simple enough though. Just sit back by the health and ammo droids and spam grenades into the courtyard. Funny enough, it actually worked like a charm. We won pretty easily judging by the scoreboard. The funny thing is, it didn't reflect the individual stats at all, but allow me to explain. In hunt mode, when you team kill someone, you lose individual points and kills, but the team points don't deplete. So it's actually to your benefit to kill your teammates when they're low on health, since it only negatively impacts your individual stats, not the overall score of the game. Because of this, we were able to team kill most of our own before the droids were able to kill any of us, and in that same process, we were able to blow up the droids with grenade spam. All of this resulted in a pretty smooth victory for the Gungan warriors. Here are my overall stats after completing all of the hunts. And just like that, we've completed every single hunt in Star Wars Battlefront 2 Classic. Now, looking back, I probably could have boosted the scores back to 150 for all of the hunts outside of the Ewok one, since some of them finished in like 2 minutes flat. But, meh, the default settings were still just as fun in my opinion. Like I said at the beginning, feel free to drop some more recommendations on things you'd like to see. With that though, I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you all, stay classy, and thanks for stopping by.